All right, thanks for staying with us. Welcome to the lifestyle segment of the weekend show. And of course, in the introduction, I spoke about how we'll be talking about flooding as the issue keeps being a recurring topic for at least the past month in the country. Lots of people, lots of communities have been affected by it, lots of lives lost, properties all around the country. So we'll be looking at that pretty soon. But first, I want to show you a video of the flooding all across Nigeria.
Tell them to reduce the volume.
All right, so we have our guest here in the studio who will be discussing with us.
So joining us this morning on this note, we have Mr. Kelvin Emmanuel, CEO of Dairy Hills Limited. Good morning, welcome to the Weekend Show.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kelvin. Nice to have you back.
Morning.
Okay, so we saw the video. It's really devastating. Every day I go on Twitter, I keep seeing more news, more losses, and all of that. What's your thought? What went through your mind watching that video?
Thank you for having me. It's quite sad because exactly 10 years ago, 363 people died. 2.2 million people were displaced in 2012. That prompted former President Goodluck Jonathan to award the 37 billion naira contract to dredge the River Niger, which is one of the solutions to the problem, really. And it's unfortunate. And what is especially... Look, we've not seen the worst of this yet. We've not seen the worst of it. And what's especially worrying for me is listening to the Minister of Water Resources saying stuff like, this is an act of God. And that he's listening to people on social media saying that there is issue with dams and that he's just laughing. And I'm asking myself, what kind of engineer is the Minister of Water Resources? Why would you not come on the media and talk to Nigerians about the solutions to the problem? So I am not surprised. My heart is broken. I sympathize with Nigerians, but I'm not surprised. And it's unfortunate that you have government officials blaming this on the people and saying that it's because of bad practices like throwing garbage in drainages. Really?
But couldn't that also be a factor in this?
Absolutely not. And I will tell you during the course of this show why it is not a factor.
Okay.
Okay, so it is said that over 400,000 hectares of farmland have been damaged and inevitably destroyed by these floods. And we know that this is going to affect the food production and also going to add more inflation to the already inflated market prices of food products. So what's your thought on this coming next year and the next harvest season?
So, you know, if you pick Olams, for example, Olams is the largest producer of poultry feeds in Nigeria. We already have like a shortage of poultry feeds in Nigeria, about 300,000 metric ton shortage of poultry feeds. Olam produces a fifth of all the rice paddy that is processed in Nigeria. Rice is the #1 staple food in Nigeria. In 2021, Nigerians consumed 2.9 trillion naira worth of rice. So you can imagine Olams coming to say that their largest rice farm in Nasarawa State was destroyed by the floods because the floods overtook their dikes and destroyed it. And that investment is worth $20 million US. So you can imagine what impact it's going to have on rice production and on food inflation from November and December, especially considering that we're going into Christmas, and especially considering that the president has placed a ban on the importation of rice into Nigeria. And you have a lot of smallholder farms along that middle belt and road, Plateau, Niger State, Nasarawa State, Benue State, that is like a food basket of Nigeria. Kogi State, completely destroyed. So I don't understand it, because I'll tell you what. You have a major cause of this problem, which is the refusal of the federal government to build the Dasin Hausa Dam in Fufure local government in Adamawa State. And the interesting thing is, in 1982, when the Lagdo Dam was built, which is the major cause of this problem, when the Lagdo Dam was built in northern Cameroon, the Cameroonian government advised the Nigerian government to build a dam close to the northwestern border of Nigeria that is twice the size of that dam, to act as a buffer dam. It's interesting that in 1982, President Muhammadu Buhari was the same president, military president of Nigeria. It's been 40 years.
Okay. So can we just take a step back when it started? What exactly could have been the cause of all of this? Particularly how it's spreading over 20, 25 states now, out of 36 states.
Let me explain to you.
Can I also add that personally, I have experienced this from just last week. I experienced it.
Okay.
And it's just the little I experienced alone was so bad that I was thinking, what of those people that have lost their lives, lost their properties, lost so many things? So what exactly could have been the issue? Okay,
so you see, let me give you a little bit of geographical insight, so you understand the problem. So you have the Lagdo Dam in northern Cameroon, that is a source of irrigation and a source of electricity, hydroelectricity power stations for the Cameroonian population. You have it bordering on Adamawa. Adamawa is in the northeast, of course. So there's a local government called Fufure local government, and you have the Benue tributaries. The Benue tributaries has 3 major rivers. You have the Gongola River in Adamawa, you have the River Taraba, and you have the Katsina Ala River. The Katsina Ala River and the River Taraba are both in Taraba State. Taraba shares a common boundary with Adamawa State, and also shares a boundary with Cameroon. So you have the flow of water from that Benue plain. What happens is, over the last 40 years, you've had sand wash up on that plain, and it's created silt. And when the more the silt rises, the more the water, when the Lagdo Dam fills up above a particular level, maybe probably above 80%, they have to release water so that the dam doesn't burst, right? So when the government releases water from that dam, it comes directly in to Adamawa, into that Benue Trough. It goes through the Gongola River, it comes into the River Taraba, into Katsina Ala, and then it comes into Makurdi, and then it empties into the River Niger, bordering on Lokoja. River Niger has a similar problem, and the problem it has is that it has silt. It's not been dredged for many years, right? In May 2017, the former Minister of Transport, Rotimi Amechi, was boasting that President Jonathan in 2012 awarded a contract of 37 billion naira for the dredging of the River Niger, and it was not done. 37 billion naira. I'm not going to take sides. I'm not going to say, oh, they did a good job, because they didn't do the work, right? And that the Buhari's government has awarded a contract of 100 million naira to dredge the same River Niger. Well, nothing has been done. Clearly, nothing has been done, because if it has been done, you will see that as the water empties from Makurdi, from Gongola, River Taraba, Katsina Ala, down into the River Niger, you have a more structured flow, because the water will not overtake the water bank. And then as it comes down into River Niger on one side, it comes down into the other parts of Kogi, Ajaokuta, it comes down into the northwestern part of Anambra State that borders on Lokoja, on Kogi State. and then it comes through that middle belt and channel. So on one side you have the southwest, on the other side you have the southeast. It comes down straight down into the Niger Delta, passes through Delta State, Patani, goes all the way through East-West Road, Daouda, empties through Bayelsa State into the Atlantic Ocean, because Bayelsa State, by name Bay Brass, just sits by the Atlantic Ocean. That's why Bayelsa State is the most prone to this disaster. So this is like a little geographical summary of the problem. And this is why it worries me that the Minister of Water Resources will blame this on acts of God and, discard the thinking that this is purely man-made. Yes, can two truths coexist? Yes. Can we say that there's been increased rainfalls over the years because of global warming? Yes, we can say that. Yeah? Which is the reason why the Lagdo Dam has been filling up higher than usual. Yes? But can this be controlled? Absolutely yes. The solution to this problem is not crisis management. The solution to this problem is prevention.
But in a situation where this has already happened, what can be done now?
Well, as it stands right now, we need to realize that the governors share a responsibility with the federal government. Okay? So if you look at the ecological fund, which is 2% of derivation to the federation account, yeah, that is shared amongst the three arms of government. You have federal government, your sharing formula in Revenue Mobilization and Official Allocation Commission is 55, 29, 16. Yeah? Of the budget from the ecological fund that goes to the federal government, NEMA takes 20%. Nigerian Agency for the Great Green Wall takes 15%. Then NEDC takes 18%. In my opinion, I think the federal government needs to increase the allocation in that share of NEMA up to probably 40% to be able to respond to disasters in the future, number one. Number two, you look at the money that has gone to the states, the state governors. The state governors treat ecological funds like security votes. They believe they are not accountable for it, that whatever they do with the money, because over the last 10 years, between 2012 and 2021, 36 states governors have received 548 billion naira in ecological funds. The question is, what have they done with it? Because it's in times like this, those funds are meant for you to build drainages, for you to create early warnings, for you to, put up disaster relief funds for the people. It's ridiculous that state governors will sit down, fold their arms, and watch this kind of situation unfold and blame everything on the federal government. I wouldn't blame everything on the federal government, but I will say this. The prevention for this situation is squarely on the shoulders of the federal government, because the dredging of the River Niger, the building of the dam in Fufure local government in Adamawa State, yeah, and ensuring that that channel of water is structured is not on the shoulders of the state governors. So I will share the responsibility between the states and the federal government.
Great. So, so far, over 600 deaths have been recorded as a result of this flood, and over 1.3 million people have been displaced as a result of this flood as well. And I actually wanted to direct this question to the government representative that was supposed to be here this morning from the Yobe State Emergency Management. So, but the damage has already been done. This flood has ravaged, has displaced a lot of families. It has even prevented a lot of travelers from getting to their destination, and people and businesses as well that involve a lot of traveling and food transportation and all the rest of that. So I wanted to ask what the damage has already been done. What is the damage control measures that the government is taking to help these victims of this flood? But since the guest couldn't make it this morning, I wanted to know what advice you have in order to help these people that have been displaced by these floods. I also heard some cases of some dead bodies being washed up in cemeteries. So this also poses a health hazard as well. So what's your advice for, first of all, the victims of this flood that have already been displaced, and also the government in terms of damage control for the catastrophic effects of this flood that has already happened?
First of all, I would say that nothing is as valuable as a leader being present for his people in a time of crisis. It inspires hope. I am surprised that President Buhari and his vice president has not issued a statement. They've not done a press conference. They've not taken a chopper or a cargo aircraft from the Air Force to travel to the states that are affected, Bayelsa State, Delta State, Kogi State, Benue State, to commiserate with the people. Show concern. That's the first thing, because it inspires hope. I'm also surprised that of all the 4 major frontline candidates, did not see the need for them to suspend their campaign. Because, in my opinion, this disaster is worse than COVID. It's worse than COVID. COVID did not create as much impact on Nigeria like this flooding. And I'm surprised that of all the 4 major presidential candidates, it was only Peter Obi that suspended his campaign temporarily to go on the ground and visit to the people.
He actually called for a general suspension of the campaigns.
And the other candidates did not see any reason to do so. So I'm wondering that you have a campaign schedule, you have tour, you go around the country, 26 states are ravaged, people are dead, their properties are destroyed. What are you doing? What's your campaign? What are you going to tell the people to vote for you while their survival is threatened? They don't have homes, they don't have food, they don't have hope. My advice for the federal government is to start to plan ahead, because the Minister of Water Resources says that the Cameroonian government did not warn them about the release of water from the dam. You cannot blame the government of Cameroon for disaster in Nigeria. They advised you 40 years ago to build a buffer dam, you did not. So the solution is prevention. So the problem is already here. But when there's a problem, leaders think about the solution and they start planning 10 steps ahead. The head of the community in Fufure local government says that they were involved in the start of the dam project in 1982. Yeah? They're expecting the government to come on the ground and revive that project and start building a buffer dam for Nigeria. And here's what it will do. If you do it, it will create irrigation for 200,000 hectares of farmland in the northeast. It will generate 400 megawatts of electricity for the people around that region. So for me, the best way to tackle this is to look towards the future and prevent the reoccurrence of this problem.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin Manuel. It's always lovely to have you here with us. And I really hope the government, at least some of them, should be watching and should take note of what you've said.
I think this is a call to the government. It's actually very practical to suspend all election activities and focus on this flood. All hands should be on deck. You can't have an election if there are no voters to vote.
Exactly.
All hands should be on deck for the victims of this flood and for prevention, like he said, from future occurrences. So I think we should prioritize the important things, and then the elections can still hold later on.
Because the elections will hold, so we should focus on the solution right now for the flooding and the flood victims. Okay, so we'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll bring you more on the Weekend Show. Stay with us.